get started. So I'm Rich West, and I am going to officially call this meeting to order. We'll begin with a roll call. We'll start with those who are physically present at the school, and then we will go to our members who are visiting us remotely. So, Lynn?
Hey, Lynn Hobbs, board member.
Hannah Zollinger, parent.
Alex Garrett, vice principal.
Jill Lowe, principal.
Ryan?
Ryan Marchant, business manager.
Teresa?
Teresa Olson, board member.
We are delighted to be here all together for this Board of Trustees meeting, March 12th, 2025. It is.
You got the wrong day.
I know,
It's the
sorry.
13th.
It's the 13th.
Yeah.
The 13th.
I apologize.
We'll forgive you once, Al.
Thank you. That's all I need.
You're a mistake for me.
On the one that we're gonna put up on the screen, it does say the 13th, but I
Oh, that's good.
found a mistake. So
And it's 4:03 p.m. So, thank you all for being here. Let's launch into this agenda. Well, maybe I should ask if anybody has any changes to the agenda before. Hearing none, we'll move forward. Item number 1, FY25 financial report preview. Now, having as an introduction, I know that Ryan and Lynn, as our budget and audit review committee, have met, and I just quizzed board member Lynn Hobbs, and he said things look good. So, with that introduction, Ryan.
Yes. Well, if Lynn says that it looks good, then it does. And I would trust Lynn for sure. So I think that's probably where we could end this portion of the meeting right now, is just things do look good. But to what you said, Rich, earlier, yes, we do have the board should know that we do have a functioning audit and budget committee, Lynn and myself. And it is a pleasure to work with him. And we go through this prior to our board meeting, just so that we can review this information and see if there's anything that needs to be discussed or brought to the board in general that's concerning or good or what have you. But the overall financial picture for Fast Forward has remained the same as essentially what it has been for the last several times that we've been together. Things do look well. We are preparing ourselves for another great school year, for looking forward to FY26 with a strong enrollment number that you can see there. We have about 515 students on our books right now, so we're doing a good ADM for next year. We have also been able to pick up some strong capitals. I'm just going to allude to two of them. The first one is we spent about $200,000 for some HVAC equipment that we did on our rooftop, which we actually got a grant for. So we've actually been reimbursed for that. And then we also did some changing of some carpets this last year within classrooms. So they're just capital expenses that we need to do. The bigger one is that we've spent to date probably let me look at the exact number here, $560,000 on the portables that you probably have seen now. If not, Jill would love to take you through them and show you the portables. But we still have another close to $200,000 to pay on those. As soon as they're billed, we'll pay those. So well over $700,000 for those. But I think it's money well spent. That's probably why our cash position's been going down the last couple months, because we've had these heavy capitals that have come. But as the school year goes on, we'll earn a little bit of that back, and then I anticipate that we should actually pay for those going into FY26. Of course, we have plenty of cash in the bank and in some of our money market accounts to pay for all of these things, so it's not a problem to do that. But we will earn it back over the next year or so. So that is great news as well. Other than that, most line items came in fairly close to budget. Lynn and I did talk a little about health insurance costs. They are expensive. Um, we did also talk about, and I think the board is aware of this. If not, you should know that if a member of Fast Forward Charter High School has been a full-time employee for more than 15 years, then we do pay for their health insurance. Um, that's a new item that we're doing this year. We started this year, and it's to keep some of our longer tenured employees around that have been with us for a long period of time. So that went up, but then we also had um, increases as you normally would see in health insurance. And we expect that to go up again this next year, probably by about 10%, although we don't have that final figure yet. One of the things that's maybe helped us offset some of those expenses over the last several years is the state retirement fund has not had an increase or a significant increase in quite a substantial period of time. Now, if you've been following the market lately, then you know that that could very well change depending on how far the market falls in this current situation that we're in right now. So we might be looking at an additional increase in that as well. So that's something that we maybe need to look for. We won't have that final number probably until about May or June when the state Utah Retirement Fund has all of their numbers, and then they'll be able to provide us with more clarity on as far as what the increases on that might be.
Ryan,
Yeah,
while you're taking a breath, let me acknowledge the fact that Frank Stewart has
Yeah.
joined us. Welcome,
Yeah.
Frank.
Hi, Frank.
Good to have you with us. I'll turn it back to Ryan so he can
Yeah.
continue his
Hi,
financial.
Frank. Thanks for that. We have moved on our balance sheet. You'll notice that we have moved some substantial amount of money into different accounts. If you want to go to our balance sheet really quick, well, let's actually right here. Let's go with, so cash at the end of February is 2.89 million. Cash at the end of January is 3 million. You can see the cash. You can go down to the next. Let's go down to the next. There we go. You can kind of see our cash balances there as we've paid for our portable and we started off, and so that's just kind of give you a 6 month history. And also the history of the head count that we have there, which again is strong. We've spent a significant portion of our budget year to date, and we will be coming back to the board for some additional items. I mean, we didn't have our portable, obviously, the 2 portables in the budget that we had last year. We didn't. So we'll be putting those on and some additional expenses. So just know that as we always do, we'll be coming back to the board to ratify an additional budget. All right, let's go to the first page of the balance statement right there. Right there is great. So you can see the total cash amount that we have. We have moved money into a cash value CD. So the $1 million that's earning interest there at just a nudge over a few basis points over 4%. And then we also have money in a cash value money market account, which is about 3.75%. So to about $2.4 million that we have in interest bearing accounts. One way, as I described this to Lynn and what we talked about in our prior meeting is, we have a note with the bank for our facility, which is about $1.7 million, but yet we have 2.4 in there that's a little over 4. So long story short, essentially we're paying for the interest on our building just simply by having our money in an interest bearing account. So, anytime you can take away some of your interest expense and offset it by some arbitrage that you might receive in some of these CD investments and money market accounts, we'll definitely take that. That'll be a big benefit for us going forward. So that's just the one main thing on the balance sheet that I wanted to just some clarity so board members are aware of it, that we do have these 2 additional funds besides our cashing. You can see our checking account there, is that's the operational account that we have that we can move in money in and out of. So any questions on any of that?
It's good.
Go ahead, Rich.
It just looks good to me.
Okay. One area to maybe look at a little bit and is that we do have an abnormal amount of special ed funding. And this is kind of one of the areas that we look at on a fairly regular basis. Yeah, you can go down to right there. That's good. You can see right now, as of just for this year, we have $178,000 carryover just now. That number probably will get even bigger as the year goes by. That on top of another $150,000 that we carried over from last year. So at the minimum, we're looking at a $300,000 carryover, which is a large number for a school of our size. We've talked about several different things, and I guess there are several options that we can explore. We don't need to make a decision today, but the options, some of the options that come to mind are there is a new in law, we can write off 30% of a restricted fund and put it into general funding. So we could take 30% of our 30% of the revenue that we received and write that off. That wouldn't come to $300,000. We couldn't get the whole thing there. The other, and I think the better and wiser use of these funds would simply be as we finish these portables, and Jill and I talked about it, that one of those portables out there is used specifically for special education and will be used for SPED. I don't see that changing. So we can take a portion of those funds and use that to pay for some of that portable if it's being used specifically for special ed. So that would probably be my number one recommendation. And the other thing is we can carry it forward. The special ed department probably wouldn't appreciate that at the state office. Where they don't want us to have huge carryovers. But the truth of the matter is that we run our special ed department as wise as we can. I wouldn't say as lean as we can either. We just simply sometimes it's hard to find people to hire in SPED. We have a constant ad out for special ed people trying to get them, additional people into our special ed department, but those things take time. So that's kind of one area of just, hey, keep an eye on this that I would point out to the board is, those special ed funds and making sure that we have a plan to spend some of those overages down. So everything else looks pretty good. One last, go ahead. Yeah.
Are there any regulatory or policy issues spending special education money for what looks like, well, for non-personnel or programmatic kinds of issues?
Yeah, so the way that they like to look at those special ed dollars is, and again, there is a little bit of, with this new law that came into effect where you can use 30% of your special ed budget or your funds to move them into like general account, as we would say. And you kind of have to have a reason for that. But if you keep dollars inside of special ed, they have to be directly related to the education of special ed students. So let's say we have a part-time employee that works part-time in special ed and part-time in another area of the school. We can only use the portion of their salary that's allocated to special ed, or the supplies that are used or their insurances, but they have to be used directly for the benefit of special ed. Does that answer your question, Rich?
Well, I thought I understood you to say that we might be using some of the special ed dollars to defray capital expenses. Is that correct?
Yes. Now we can. So if I understand your question right, can we use special ed dollars to pay for capital to basically use it for our portable? Is that correct?
Right.
Yeah, that's my understanding at this point. Yes, we can use those as long as the classroom is 100% used for SPED.
Okay.
Any other questions on that? Okay. Another area that we need to probably look at would be.
This is maybe not even a question. Maybe it's more a rhetorical question because I'm not sure anybody has an answer right now, but with the uncertainty of federal funds being managed the way they have been in the past, maybe it's a bigger question than just special education, but it seems to me that special education involves more federal dollars flowing through than almost any other budget category.
Yeah.
Is there any talk about what schools should be doing?
Well, you bring up a good point because of some of the recent developments in Washington with the cutting of the Department of Education that they're trying to do currently. Right now, Fast Forward has received anywhere between $60,000 and $45,000 in IDEA funds, which are specifically the federal portion of the special ed. And right now, those funds are used directly to pay for our special ed director, Kathy. Now, I don't know what if I was going to forecast it, I don't know exactly what's going to happen to those dollars going forward. My guess would be if they're cutting the Department of Education, those funds are probably most likely going to be gone. So that's $45,000 to $50,000 a year that we would need to basically collapse into this budget that you're looking at now, which would be state educational funds. So that's, we would have the funds to pay for that in a carryover scenario. We would say, okay, we have $300,000 in carryover. If the feds decide not to fund IDEA anymore, we can spread that out. So that's another avenue, as you bring that up, that we could say, look, we're just going to use it to pay for the IDEA dollars that aren't going to come to us over the next several years.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Yeah. The last thing I maybe want to talk about just for a minute is our school lunch. We have trust lands looks good. Here's the IDEA dollars you can see. Yeah, you can see we have huge expenses in there. We haven't booked any revenue just simply because we haven't requested the funds yet, but we will. And then Title I, same thing with Title I, right? I mean, Title I could be going away as well very easily. And, that's something that we would have to collapse into our overall budget as well. That's about $60,000 a year.
Interesting as you look at these different budget categories, how many of them originate in the federal government?
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of these ones. And these are the ones these are kind of the main ones that we have to track. I mean, we all track them separately, whether it's a general fund like a variable account or whether it's a Title I or an IDEA. But there is a lot more compliance, I guess, on our end with these particular funding formulas because we do get audited on them on a fairly regular basis. And so we really have to be pretty sharp on how we account for these dollars. Going down one more though, Alex, school lunch. So you can see our school lunch is it's expensive. Keep going all the way down to the next page too. So as of right now, school lunch has basically cost us $60,000. And I'm agnostic whether that's good or bad because it serves a purpose at the school. So I think it's good and it's good in a lot of ways that we have this many kids that are eating school lunch. But there is a program out there currently where you can apply if your poverty rate is high enough where you can apply for free school lunch for every student. And if you get approved for that, then the school lunch is paid for just as the kids come through, and basically everybody is deemed as economically disadvantaged. That's something that we could maybe look at. I mean, if we're going to have, if we're looking at something like this, maybe that's an avenue that we want to go out where we can really get, maybe some other kids participating in school lunch. I don't know, Jill, what are your thoughts on this? It's definitely a big benefit to our school, I would say. So I would just say this is the cost of doing business as a school in a lot of ways. We just have a lot of economically disadvantaged kids. But it is a cost to the school.
I would agree with that. It definitely is a benefit to our students. I like the idea of looking into that program to apply for that, lunch for all. But it's expensive, but it would be hard to not have available to kids.
Yeah.
In looking at the numbers,
the other challenge, Ryan and Jill, that of course is down in that Bridgerland area, we just don't have any fast food. We don't have any other stores, places coming in. We thought we had one or two that might build simultaneous to what we're doing, but boy, if you can come up with that federal package, that would be awesome.
Yeah, it would.
Yeah, it's not going to save us any money, but I don't think that's the point. I think that we can look at that and we could probably have a pretty good shot of implementing that. And that would provide, like you were saying, Frank, some options for some of these kids that are maybe on the sidelines that, the parent hasn't filled out the fee waiver or they're marginal, at best as far as whether they're on the borderline or not. But, sometimes those are the kids that get stuck in the kind of in the friction a little bit is those kids that are just right above the economically disadvantaged, but they're not doing great either. So these would probably capture some of those kids, I would imagine. Anyway, it's something we can look into.
Say that again.
Um, so those are some areas, those are some discussion points. Yeah, the SPED, the school lunch, the title funds that will be who knows what's going to happen with the feds and some of these funds, whether they'll be going away. My guess is they will be. And we probably need to collapse them into our budget and fund them anyway. So yeah, you're talking, $100,000 haircut in your budget between IDEA and Title One. So anyway, but things look well. We'll be coming to the board with we'll probably have a couple meetings, and then in our June board meeting, we'll have a couple more updates financial between now and then. And then when we come in our June meeting, we will have a updated budget that we'll propose to the board, and then our best guess for 2026, where we think those numbers are going to come in. So legislative updates should be out soon now that the legislative session is over. Looks like there were some good benefits that came out of that. There was a 4% WPU increase. The teachers did get an increase, I think, of about $1,500, right in that range. Then there was also some admin assistant education, which basically everybody qualifies, I think, for pretty much. So there were some good things that came out of the legislative session too, that'll help us give us some fuel going into the end of the next year. So any questions on anything? We try to get the financial statement out so everybody can review it. We're always available Lynn and I are always available. And if we can't find the answer, we'll try and dig into it. Okay, well, that's all I have if there's no additional questions.
Any additional questions?
No.
All right, no action required here. Thank you, Ryan.
Yeah.
Let's move to the next item on the agenda, School Land Trust Report Review. Principal Lowe.
Okay. I was looking at this and I thought, well, I probably would have been helpful to include what our goals were in this, but this is I just am following up on our school land trust from the school year 23-24. So we have to submit this to the state each year and want to present it to you, and we will also be sending it out to parents. The money, we get a little over $60,000 from our school land trust, and we pay for one of our teachers, Shandy Chambers, who is part of our CTE program and does some other classes outside of our CTE program. Anyway, our goal is to increase participation in CTE. Our goal is we have a goal to increase graduation rates and to increase our concurrent enrollment in participation. Thank you, Alex. Anyway, so we knocked it out of the park in quite a few areas. And in a few of our areas we fell short. The data's up on the screen or in front of you to kind of go through a few areas I wanted to hit. We have a great CTE program that our students love and participate in. So I was a little bit surprised to see we had a decrease from the 23 school year. Not too much, but enough that it was, kind of surprising. Our graduation rate went up, which is great. Our special ed post-high graduation contacts went down a little bit. No, actually it did. The participation rate stayed the same and actually increased with the number of students who were in college and career training. or, employment training after leaving high school. So we had some ups and downs. We were all pretty happy with the way things went, and we're just going to continue working towards our goals. And we are continuing it right now and into next year. So that's just kind of a quick rundown of the data that we collected.
Do you monitor at all any of the students that don't graduate? Are we monitoring them out to see what they're doing? I just wondered.
We do in the special ed, we contact, well, I guess, do we contact the kids that don't graduate after? That's a
Luckily,
good
the
question.
last 2 years, it was one student 2 years ago, and then last year it was 2 students. So we typically know who they are and like try to develop a plan if we know they're not
If they're,
making it towards
yeah,
graduation.
I'm not sure if we contact them post
Yeah.
graduation, but they do have a plan when they don't graduate, yeah. And it's usually part of the plan is always to get their diploma and continue on in some way. Yeah. So,
Jill, I just had 2 comments. We were talking about this a little bit for the Logan City School District, and I know it's more difficult with the numbers, but I wonder if there's a way we could start tracking the CTE graduates to see actually where they end up.
that's a great, yeah.
With the trend changing over to different forms of education, if you will, whether that's a pathway program or Bridgerland or what have you, really starting to get interested in the number of students that are starting to maybe shift. And you might have a small enough number that you could maybe tackle that. I don't know. That's just
Absolutely.
something to think about that would become very interesting as you get other students to start taking more CTE classes and encourage them that way.
Oh, absolutely. That's something we could very, very, I think, easily accomplish is tracking those students.
And then again, the other nice thing is that we get an additional percentage. So we go from 4 to 5% this year on the land trust. So what we don't know for sure how much that's going to be yet. That's an additional percentage.
Yeah, that'll be great. So anyway, that's just kind of a quick rundown of our school land trust I wanted to update you on. Any questions on that? I'm going to include that, Frank, in our plan for this coming school year.
That'd be fun to see.
Yeah.
I think it might surprise us how well
good
a lot of our
information.
students are doing.
Yep. It would be good information. Okay.
Good comment. Wonderful. Any further discussion on that item? Let's move then to LEA specific license updates, and this will require some board action. So be thinking.
Okay. Ready for me?
Uh-huh.
Okay, this is just 2. We've already approved most of these teachers. There are 2 additional classes that have been added this year. Samuel Anderson for a meteorology class and Tyson Budge for a business communications class. Yep, are the 2 teachers that we're seeking approval for LEA specific licenses. If you remember, an LEA specific license, including areas of concentration and endorsements, is issued by the state board at the request of an LEA's governing body that is valid for an employee to fill a position in the LEA if other licensing routes for the applicant are unattainable or unreasonable. So all these teachers here are teaching a class that just kind of doesn't make sense or is unattainable for them to get basically qualified in, but they have background or related experience, so which we felt makes them qualified. So
Samuel Anderson has experienced weather.
He is
Yes, he has.
undergrad is in climatology.
Yeah,
actually,
but yeah,
so.
and he's experienced the weather, so, but yes, and yes. Yep, and Tyson Budge has his degree in business, so anyway. Those are the 2 teachers we'd like to get approval for today.
And so a motion that might be entertained would be to approve the LEA specific licenses for those two individuals in those two subject areas. Is that correct?
Correct.
So do we have a motion?
All motion that we approve these teachers with LEA specific licenses, Samuel Anderson for meteorology and Tyler Budge in business communication.
Tyson,
Have a
I'll second the motion.
Hannah seconds. Any questions on the motion before we take a vote? Hearing none. Those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Those opposed, speak your mind. I heard none. So, motion passes. And there you go, Jill, it's done.
Great.
Hey, thank you all. Now. School calendar, 2025-26 school calendar. This also requires board action.
Okay, our calendar that we're presenting to you, the process to get this calendar has gone through. Usually Alex and I present 2 or 3 calendars that are possibilities to our faculty members. And we generally try to align with the Logan City School District calendar as much as we possibly can. Sometimes start and end dates change just a little bit, but for the most part, this aligns with both district calendars as far as breaks, and that kind of a thing. So this is what our faculty has voted on and would like to present to you guys today for approval.
Want to point out any unusual features or departures from previous history we might pay attention to?
The only thing that's weird this year, and this is across all the calendars, is fall break. Fall break occurring the 9th and 10th rather than that third week. But all the other schools are doing it too. So we just mirrored them to just make sure we're all on the same breaks.
I think
But
that's good.
But that's like the
16th and 17th.
yeah, exactly.
It's always been the 16th.
Yeah.
So that's like the one kind of weird date change. Then this year too, if you notice, like in years past, we've done parent teacher conferences on Wednesdays. So kids would come to school Monday, Tuesday, we'd have PTC, and then they'd come again the next day. But we're going to switch it to Thursdays in the
I
hope
think that's
we would usually see a
Yeah.
pretty big attendance dip on that Thursday because ironically we met with the parents and then they didn't show up the next day. But so we're hoping that it will be 3 days of continuous school and then our parent teacher conference to
that gap day is
be
terrible.
less
Yeah.
disruptive.
It-
Yeah.
It's horrible.
Yeah.
It's a little
So we're gonna try it and we'll see how it plays out this year. This
Way
coming
better.
year. Yeah.
So we'll see next year how it goes, but
You know, for real old timers, that fall break. That's when
The
the
deer
old
hunt.
UEA
UEA.
meetings
that's
were,
not
it was
bad.
always
I
the,
remember that.
it was always the second week.
Gonna say that is deer hunt.
Yeah, the
It's
deer hunt
funny,
usually falls there
Because there's so
too.
many kids that skip out of school those
Mhm.
2 days.
That's what my dad would do.
People still hunt deer.
My
Yes.
dad does.
Yes, a lot of them do.
Any other questions on the calendar? Frank, does, from your perspective representing Logan City School District, does this seem to make sense?
I think the big one usually for families obviously is trying to have those spring and fall breaks as close together as we can. So while we all try to share that with each other, if it matches up, that's great. But yeah, the 9th and 10th is a little different, but everybody's doing it like Alex mentioned.
Any other questions, folks? Is there a motion to accept the calendar as proposed?
I'll make a motion to accept the 2025 through 2026 Fast Forward Charter High School calendar as it's been presented to us.
I'll
That's
second the motion.
Teresa. And Hannah seconds. Wonderful. Any further question? Those in favor of the motion, say aye or signify by a raised hand, whatever you'd like to do.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, if any? Okay, motion passes once again. Thank you very much. Moving on to the last item on the agenda, principal's report.
Okay, to wrap things up, just a few happenings around the school. We had parent-teacher conferences yesterday, and we had a pretty good turnout for our FAFSA night, which was exciting, at least for me. I thought it was exciting. Our student center put in a lot of work to prepare for that, and we had a pretty good turnout. We got our portables finished up a couple of weeks ago. So yeah, if anyone wants a tour, please come by. And it just gave a few of our teachers who have been roving for quite a few years a permanent classroom to be in. So that's been huge and very exciting. So we're grateful for your support in making that happen. We've got graduation coming up on May 21st at 2 p.m. Please come if you can. We will send, an official invite out and remind you through emails. So please come and participate if you can. And it's up at Utah State in the Danes Concert Hall. So.
Jill, do you need any help with setup or anything like that?
I don't think so. We're trying to run it a little differently this year because last year we actually didn't have quite enough room for all the family members that graduates brought, which was unfortunate. So we're trying to be proactive, and we're going to be handing out tickets to families and also having an overflow area for families to gather in if they're unable to get a seat or a ticket. So it'll still be in the Danes Concert Hall area. They just have an overflow area or room that we can use. Yeah. So I think we're okay. I think we've got.
Well, please let us know if we can help in any way, or if you want to station us somewhere.
Yes, thank you. We appreciate
as a welcome.
I sure appreciate that. We've got a little banquet for the graduates for families before that you're welcome to come to with some snacks. You can't pass up a free snack. So please come early if you would like a good treat. So
senior night on the 19th.
Yep. And then thanks for the reminder, Alex. On the 19th, we have a senior celebration night for our graduates and families. We're going to have that at the Cache Valley Events Center. And it's free for the kids and their families. And we do awards, we do scholarships. It's kind of a fun night for our graduates. So please come to that if you are able to. Yeah.
I think it's at 4.
I think at 4. I was thinking 5. We'll give you an invite, but it's either at 4 or 5. So, and then just kind of some update on some of the recent legislation. I'm excited about. They have signed no cell phones in classrooms for next year, which is huge.
Yeah.
And it's going to be an undertaking. Alex and I have spent quite a few hours trying to figure out how that's going to work.
Sounds fun to patrol.
I know it's kind of overwhelming, but I think it will be a good thing. So that's just something I wanted to announce for those of you that didn't know. So
Lynn, you and I would have had much better grades if they had that policy then, don't you think?
Say that again, Frank.
I was going to say Lynn and I would have had much better grades had they started that policy earlier.
Yeah, and that Rich had a question about connected devices. So that's smart watches, tablets. So it will be interesting to see how we're going to maneuver that. But I think it'll be a good thing. So
seems like it would make participation a lot better.
Oh yeah, engagement.
Yeah,
it should
that
be
actual
huge.
person-to-person engagement.
Yeah, but they can have their devices in between classes. So it's going to be tricky how that's going to work. I think that's going to be the hard part. So
for reference, we have 2-minute passing periods.
Yeah.
So we'll be rapid fire trying to get those last little text messages sent or snaps or whatever. So Yeah. Well,
So we'll have our work cut out for us next year, but anyway, that's kind of all I've got. Does anybody have any questions on anything?
Well, any other issues or items that need to be discussed by the board? Well, hearing none, is there a motion to close the meeting?
Also move.
I'll second it.
So there's no debate here, so those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're done, folks. Thank you very
Thank-
much.